So he went out with his friend one night, and then we're not sure why yet because we haven't had these answers from the driver. They decided to drive home, and the driver was over the limit.
Any emergency situation relies on a quick, organised response. If the fire service, the ambulance service or even the police are delayed, it could be detrimental to the persons involved.
You're talking about people dying, people going to work, people going to see their family, whatever, dying because somebody else didn't want to not have another drink, and that is completely avoidable, so we should be doing everything we can as a society to avoid it.
Most people would associate drinking with the nights out that started off as only going for one, but unfortunately for some, that extra drink will have been the last drink they ever tasted.
Jack was funny, charming, always the life of every party, knew what he wanted in life. He had no interest in me at first, like at all, no interest. But after a while, I sort of didn't leave him alone and he started to like me a bit. We were together for about 6 years in all. First few years it was just sort of finding out what relationships were because we were so young, and then just sort of started to love each other, and it was just really nice and exactly what you want from a boyfriend.
Jess and Jack were high school sweethearts. They first met 7 years ago at their school in Hertfordshire and grew up planning the life they were going to share together. But their adventure came to a sudden end when Jack was involved in a tragic accident.
He went out with his friend one night, and then we're not sure why yet because we haven't had these answers from the driver. They decided to drive home, and the driver was over the limit. He took a corner wrong, went up a bank. In a panic, he oversteered, which made the car flip. As the car was tilting from side to side, the sunroof cracked, and Jack got half trapped out of it, and then that's what killed him. It broke his neck. I thought something had happened to my mum because you don't ever expect your 19-year-old boyfriend to. He didn't even pop into my head. So my dad eventually told me, but I didn't really believe him. It was just sort of a blur after that.
At the young age of 19, Jack had created a hole in the lives of the people he had left behind.
A year on, I still haven't come to terms with it. You don't believe it. Like, it's just something that you won't ever believe because you don't want to believe it. You're in denial. You think that because he spent so much time away from home, you can just pretend that he's somewhere else. Oh, what I miss the most. Just having someone to talk to, like that person.
The current drink drive limit in the UK is 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood. This equates to just under 2 pints of beer or 2 small glasses of wine, a limit more and more people are willing to exceed before getting behind the wheel.
OK, that's £4, thank you.
Jack was one of over 8,000 casualties reported in 2015. With 1 in 8 road deaths caused by drink driving, experts believe more needs to be done to stop these increasing figures.
I think we need to be tougher as a country on drink driving. We've lost focus. I mean, I'd like to see more money invested into awareness, but actually I'd like us to be stronger on our messaging to say that there isn't really a safe level, that drinking at all before you drive means that you're impaired, your reactions are slower, you're more likely to be in an accident, you're more likely to be in a fatal accident. You're talking about people dying, people going to work, people going to see their family, whatever, dying because somebody else didn't want to not have another drink, and that is completely avoidable, so we should be doing everything we can as a society to avoid it.
But for the services we rely on the most to prevent and deal with drink driving, they themselves are now being stretched to the limit.
We've seen significant cuts in public services. We've also seen that across emergency services, so in the NHS, especially around the ambulance service, we see that things are stretched more and more, but also for police and fire, and that to us is really worrying.
Public service cuts to the fire and rescue service alone will reduce by over 20% within the next 4 years. Cuts to staffing levels and training have already been made to the fire service, and they worry these cuts will have detrimental effects.
Any emergency situation relies on a quick, organised response. If the fire service, the ambulance service or even the police are delayed, it could be detrimental to the persons involved.
Won't hurt, just one more, will it? Thank you.
We are there for the safe, rapid extrication of the casualties and the trauma care that goes with it until they can be transferred to hospital by the ambulance service. With the lack of staff, time and the funding that goes with it, this is obviously going to be reduced. You cannot keep reducing the number of personnel. Unfortunately, it's a service that relies on people.
Another blue light service reliant on its staff is the ambulance service. Their main job at any drink drive accident is to support the casualties.
The alcohol stimulates parts of your brain, so it makes you think you can do things which you can't normally do. They think they can drive perfectly well, even though they've got alcohol in their system, but when they hit someone, have a crash, turn their car over, that's proof that they can't do it. We turn up, whether they've been drink driving or not, or they're a positive breath test or not, we treat them as a patient. Doesn't matter what they've done, if they're injured.
But with cuts being made to their staffing levels, the ambulance service is struggling to meet the demands of their increasing call rates.
People call an ambulance because there are cuts in GP services, there are cuts in pharmacies, there are cuts in A&Es. The people don't know where to go to, so they call 999 thinking an ambulance will come out and solve their problems. So the call rate is really high. We're not getting enough staff and enough vehicles to allow that call rate to be, for that demand to be met.
As a result of the budget cuts, many police forces are being made to send their frontline officers into desk jobs instead. In Hertfordshire, though, a different approach has been taken, as their Police and Crime Commissioner believes frontline police officers are essential in deterring crime.
Wait there for me. I need you to step out of the vehicle for me, please.
Overall, national figures suggest there's going to be fewer police officers on the front line, but that's not the case in Hertfordshire. In Hertfordshire, we're going in the other direction. We find that having police officers on the front line also helps to ensure that crime is lower, because there is that element that people think they won't get away with the crime because they can see police officers there. It just reassures people, and that's perhaps the most important reason for having police officers on the front line here.
The challenges facing the UK's police, fire brigade and ambulance trusts will continue to drastically change over the next decade. Faced with decreasing resources, the blue light services are under more pressure than ever to make savings while still delivering results. But in the face of these cuts, the need for young people to be educated about the risks of drink driving is vital.
If you say, well, we'll allow everyone to drink and then the percentage that we pick up we will jail, that's not going to change attitudes properly. What you want to do is to educate.
Unfortunately, it does seem the case that one person drinks and a lot of people pay the price for it.
Don't drink, don't drive, get a cab, get a friend to pick you up, walk, or just don't drink.
Unless you're selfish and don't care about anyone else but yourselves, don't do it, because it's not only you and your family, it's other people that you might affect. It's not their fault. So unless you're selfish and don't care at all, then just don't do it. Just don't be selfish, don't think of everyone else.